Out of a global capital located Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, the President of the Council of Ministers of Italy, Her Excellency Giorgia Meloni, Foreign Minister of India, Dr. Jaishankar, Ambassador Vinay Quattro, esteemed leaders, Excellencies and distinguished guests. A very, very warm welcome to the 8th Raisina Dialogue. This edition of the dialogue is special. It is the first dialogue in India's Amrit Kal, or Golden Age, an epoch marking the 25 years leading up to a century of India's independence. When colonial rule left our country starving of resources, it could not shackle the hopes and dreams of a billion people. Today, those aspirations remain alive, and 75 years that passed have led to this very moment of resurgence. Amrit Kal is when the population of this country will be lifted to new standards of living, when the state will grow it in its capacity to serve the needs of not just its own citizens, but those of the world, and when the country will invest in shaping a new global order that is responsive to all humanity and to our shared planet. The Raisina Dialogue seeks to be an ideas companion in this journey of India with the world. There is a packed agenda for the dialogue in the days ahead that allows us to engage with new voices, new thoughts and new ideas that could indeed change our paradigms. 2023 is also significant for India, as it is the year of India's presidency of the G20, a group of nations that are pivotal to the world's future because their choices have cascading regional and global consequences. The failures of the G20 will hurt the world, and their successes will lift us all. The ambition of this year's G20 has also shaped the dialogue's agenda. From debating the need for reforms in multilateralism to encouraging lifestyle changes to mitigate the climate crisis, the Raisina Dialogue aims to support India's G20 priorities. This year, G20 also aims to be inclusive. The Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, elaborated his vision at the Voice of the Global South Summit. He said, and I quote, "As far as India is concerned, your voice is India's voice, your priorities are India's priorities." This sentiment will be reflected in the Raisina Dialogue Town Hall on March 5th, where we will gather not only the G20 countries, but also participants from over 80 countries to be present and to discuss our common future. That collective future may be difficult to imagine at this moment, given what we went through in the first 2 years of this decade. Indeed, has it only been 2 years? From old conflicts resurfacing in Europe to convenient morality in Afghanistan, from complete disregard for the environment to selfish acts during the COVID-19 pandemic. This already feels like a very long decade, and this brought out the worst of humanity. Forums like this dialogue are seeking to bring out the best. It is during these gatherings that exaltations could catalyze an inclusive development policy that is fit for purpose. The theme for this year's dialogue is provocation, uncertainty, turbulence, lighthouse in the tempest. Question mark. Can all of us assembled here in New Delhi be a lighthouse in our own way? As the world is being battered by a perfect storm, multiple beacons are needed to illuminate the way. India seeks to be one of them and to inspire others to be the same. Last year, as we opened the dialogue, we made 2 promises to the Honorable Prime Minister. First, that as hosts, we would follow the sun to where the best and most plausible ideas await. And second, we committed to investing in building the next generation of global diplomats. This year, on February 18th, we launched Raisina at Sydney, alongside the editions we host in Delhi, Berlin, and Washington, D.C. This dialogue is now truly chasing the sun, seeking inspiration from across the globe. This October, the past October, we also inaugurated the Raisina Forum for the Future of Diplomacy. Hosted in New Delhi and Varanasi, it brought together diplomats from over 30 countries to rethink their official responsibilities and ethics. The world's diplomatic corps are now the first responders to everything, from health crisis to man-made and natural disasters. The investment in skills and character that may be demanded of them need to be invested in and need to be invested in now. Continuing our tradition of engaging the brightest minds from around the world, we welcome the 2023 batch of the Raisina Young Fellows who are seated here to my right. We have 48 fellows from 33 countries and a community which is now close to 2,000 from over 110 countries. It is a hope that these young minds and others who will join us at the dialogue will take with them new perspectives, new friendships, and a new resolve, inspired by the ethos of this G20 priority and agenda. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. Stronger together is the Indian way. Perhaps that is the only way. Welcome once again, and let the conversations begin. I thank you for gathering here. And I want to now invite the chairman of the Observer Research Foundation, Mr. Sanjay Joshi, to introduce the dialogue and our keynote address and inaugural speaker. Mr. Sanjay Joshi, the mic is yours.
A very good evening to all our distinguished guests. Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, our guest of honor, Excellency Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy, Honorable External Affairs Minister, our partners, the Ministry of External Affairs, Ministers, Admirals, Generals, this distinguished gathering assembled in this room for the 8th Raisina Dialogue. 2 decades ago, the phrase Vision 2020 used to evoke hope and optimism over the future of a 21st century world, riding on the back of global value chains, free markets, into a world of universal prosperity. Well, 2020 came, and instead of a well-lit road going to the future, we seem to have hit a series of blind spots one after the other. And today, the engine of globalization, which is supposed to be the engine of growth, lies broken, rudderless. And as we assemble for the 8th edition of Raisina Dialogue, we are challenged responding to a world where multilateralism lies fatally wounded. Wounded in wars that spill into multiple domains that no Geneva Convention controls. Trade, global finance, energy, food, everything is a weapon. A hyper-connected world, hyperventilating on Twitter 24/7, where the pandemic of hate and anger spreads with greater virulence than COVID-19 ever did. Now, what rules of engagement do we now create for countries and people that seem to have no desire to talk to each other? Well, some argue that the answer lies in building gated communities of nations that grant membership based on the reliability of the cardholders. Minilateralism, we called it. Well, others think that the answer lies in running the world's financial affairs out of a global capital located perhaps in the Swiss resort town of Davos. Both are fatally flawed. The problems that confront us cannot be confined within these walled gates. There's a real world out there which will keep invading, shattering the carefully constructed narratives, the norms, the sanctions that prop up these virtual domains. And caught in between all this are nations, middle powers, beleaguered emerging economies that, given a choice, have no interest in engaging in geopolitical competition, much less playing ball with revisionist powers keen to overturn the existing global order. These nations bank upon global multilateral institutions to manage potential conflicts and smooth the impact of trade wars and great power rivalries. And yet, as the business of governance has got more complex, more complicated, more than ever, we need new rules for the road now. We need new rules of the road now because we no longer travel just as a community of nations. We have been joined by many new actors who can traverse these highways with far greater speed than the nations ever do. And these are tectonic events which are taking place, and the greater their magnitude, the weaker is becoming our capacity to respond to it. And mind you, this is only Act 1 of this play. Already we see technology move in to substitute agency-led order and norms by discrete, anonymized protocols for finance, trade, commerce, and communications. For good or for bad, it is difficult to tell today. But in Act 2, which is coming, which is called the age of the intelligent machine, now, unlike science fiction, the machine age does not manifest itself suddenly as an omnipresent, all-knowing chatbot appearing one fine day. Instead, it is slipping in each day, camouflaged in a forest of cookies, protocols, self-learning algorithms, Kafkaesque structures, which fashioned by tech